President al Assad stressed during an interview with Addounia TV that Syria fights a regional and international battle and needs time to finish it. Iran says a multipolar system is emerging in which non-aligned countries can play a major role. Al-Muallim stresses that the Syrian delegation withdraws in protest against Morsi's speech, which encourages more bloodshed in Syria. Army units chase armed gangs in Aleppo, Idlib, Dar'a al-Hamam, inflicting heavy losses on them. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to our news for today. Foreign and Expatriates Minister Walid al-Muallim has said that the Syrian delegation taking part in the non-aligned country summit in Tehran has withdrawn during the speech delivered by the former president of the summit, Mohamed Morsi. Mr. al-Muallim added that this was in protest against the speech, which violated the summit norms and is considered an intervention in Syria's internal affairs. Mr. al-Muallim stressed that the Syrian delegation's withdrawal is also a rejection of the instigation, which encourages the shedding of Syrian blood implied in Morsi's speech. However, the Syrian delegation resumed its follow-up of the summit's meetings after the speech ended. Mr. al-Muallim clarified. Supreme Leader of Iran's Islamic Revolution, Sayyid Ali Khamenei, stressed on the sidelines of the non-aligned summit that Iran sees that the natural condition to solve the crisis in Syria is to halt sending weapons to the armed terrorist groups in the country. Khamenei affirmed that the prevailing situation in Syria is caused by the outflow of weapons sent to the terrorist groups from across most of Syria's borders. He said that the governments of the countries sending arms to the terrorist groups in Syria are the ones responsible for hindering the implementation of the plan of the former UN envoy to Syria, Kofi Annan. Iranian President Mahmoud Ahmadinejad said in his word during the opening session of the non-aligned summit in Tehran that the world is fighting against poverty as wars are imposed on nations in order to increase Western states' profits out of selling weapons. The Iranian president affirmed that the world is run by a few specific capitalist powers. He added that the UN Security Council has done nothing for the Palestinian people except consolidating the status of the Zionist entity. He pointed out that nations and independent governments cannot go to the Security Council in order to get their rights. He underlined the need for changing the present situation, establishing justice, and conducting reforms within the UN system. President Najad said the non-aligned countries' potentials are huge that enable them to play an important role at the level of international relations to realize peace and justice in the world. Army units continue to chase armed terrorist groups in Aleppo, clashing with a number of them near a Rashid mosque in Saif al-Dawla, killing and wounding large numbers of them. In cooperation with local residents, army units chased armed groups in Saif al-Dawla and Al-Mawlat area used by them as bases to commit crimes against citizens. Authorities found a cache of weapons and a satellite transmission set and a number of cameras. During the operation in Salah ad-Din, Al-Amiriya, Al-Hashkal, and Tel al-Zarazir in Aleppo, authorities confiscated large amounts of weapons, which included ammunitions, 1 mortar, 3 machine guns, pump-action rifles, medical equipment, and hand grenades. Authorities also found a factory for manufacturing explosives. 3 snipers were also killed in Al-Azamiya area. Army units also targeted armed terrorists near Al-Ibn Mosque in Kastel Harami, killing large numbers of them. Army units broke into 6 headquarters used by terrorists in the ancient quarter of Ariha in Idlib and found computer sets. Authorities also restored 6 pickup cars stolen by the terrorists and confiscated large quantities of weapons in addition to a field hospital full of stolen materials. An army unit chased terrorists in Zamalka and Damascus suburbs. The army members killed a number of the terrorists and seized their weapons, which included Israeli-made grenades. A clash broke out with an armed terrorist group at Al-Kabir mosque in the city, in which a large number of terrorists were killed while others managed to escape. In response to the appeals of the innocent civilians in Zamalka city, units of the army forces entered Zamalka to relieve the residents of the armed terrorist groups which wreaked havoc on the city. Authorities have come across several stolen archaeological findings in a terrorist hideout in Kirkad, intended to be smuggled outside Syria. Among the pieces found was a mosaic painting of a unique kind in the world. It had been stolen by terrorists from a Famia museum. The authorities also found in the hideout developed communication equipment, fabricated videotapes, and a handmade anti-aircraft machine gun base. Engineering army units dismantled today an explosive device planted by an armed terrorist group in Hattin in Daraa. Our correspondent quoted a source in the city as saying that the device weighed between 30 to 40 kilograms, equipped with a remote control detonator. Finally, President Bashar al Assad has stressed that the readiness of the armed forces for self-sacrifice and their successes had protected the homeland of the danger awaiting it, and that the people's attitude in embracing the army played a major role.
President Bashar al-Assad has stressed the armed forces' readiness for self-sacrifice and their successes that protected the homeland of the danger awaiting it, and that the people's attitude in embracing the army plays a major role in such successes. In an interview conducted with His Excellency by the Syrian Addounia satellite channel, President al-Assad said Syria needs no green light concerning sovereign, local and patriotic issues, neither from friends nor from foes, not even from adversaries. The President affirmed that the battle today was that of willpower, and to say that the events in Syria started peaceful and unarmed was not accurate, because from the first week of such events, policemen and security personnel fell martyrs. Was their martyrdom caused by screams and the ultrasound strength of the demonstrators' voices? The President wondered. The President said what is happening in Syria is terrorism, which we will not hesitate to be decisive about. He added that our brave armed forces are the most important sector in our homeland's steadfastness, and they are carrying out heroic operations unique in kind. If they use all their military potentials, they can crush large areas, but this is unacceptable and would not realize they aspired for results, the President pointed out. President al-Assad said some sides made a mistake when they believed that the ship was that of the regime. It was that of the homeland as a whole. If it survives, it was that of the homeland as a whole. If it survives, the whole homeland will survive. And if it sinks, the whole homeland will sink. The President added that the masses of the people, not the elites, made the ship survive. The President affirmed that our heroic forces take into consideration in their fight against terrorism protecting lives and properties, and they need time to settle things. The Syrian state's sovereignty on its land is full and permanent, and to talk about what's called buffer zones is not realistic, the President added. About the role of some regional states in the crisis in Syria, President al-Assad said the Turkish state is directly responsible for the Syrian bloodshed, and that our relations are strategic with peoples, not with governments, including the friendly Turkish people. The President said that defections are a self-cleaning process, and running away is a positive step that cleans the state. President al-Assad said that a person who runs away is either corrupt or a coward. President Assad said Syria is paying today the price of its national stance, and the so-called Arab Spring is the West's new phase in subjugating Syria after the failure of the so-called open-up policy to it. The issue today is for Syria either to sink or live. President al-Assad underlined the important role of Syrian national information, particularly during this crisis, adding that our national media has defeated true media empires. His Excellency noted that had our media played no important role, our media men would not have paid the price with their own lives. President al-Assad said that the Syrian people, with all their categories, have been the ones who have protected the homeland, and that Syria's destiny lies in the hands of the Syrian people. The president added that men of religion played a substantial, honorable and historical role if we take into consideration that the essence of the crisis was to sow sedition. On the economic situation, President al-Assad pointed out that Syria is a productive country and our economy must be reformulated so that benefits would come out of the crisis, adding that we must change some of our consumption habits. About the release of some detainees, President al-Assad said that was not a step of weakness, but one that illustrated the state's self-confidence. The president affirmed that solving the crisis couldn't be done only through eliminating terrorism by force, but also through resorting to all methods, including tolerance, to overcome this crisis. He added that the national opposition has placed its own interests aside and put the homeland's interest above its differences with the state.
With this, we conclude our news bulletin for today. For more information about Syria and the region, and if you want to view our bulletin again, you can visit our website in English, syriaonline.sy. Up next, the latest business. By the former president of the summit, Mohammed Morsi. Mr. Al-Muallim added that this was in protest against the speech, which violated the summit norms and is considered an intervention in Syria's internal affairs. Mr. Al-Muallim stressed that the Syrian delegation's withdrawal is also a rejection of the instigation, which encourages the shedding President al-Assad stressed during an interview with Addounia TV that Syria fights a regional and international battle and needs time to finish it. Iran says a multipolar system is emerging in which non-aligned countries can play a major role. Al-Muallim stresses that the Syrian delegation withdraws in protest against Morsi's speech, which encourages more bloodshed in Syria. Army units chase armed gangs in Aleppo, Idlib, Dar al-Hamam, inflicting heavy losses on them. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to our news for today. Foreign and Expatriates Minister Walid al-Muallim has said that the Syrian delegation taking part in the non-aligned country summit in Tehran has withdrawn during the speech delivered by